Yo, what's going on, everybody? Today we're doing something a little bit different. We're going to be doing a competition breakdown of SPL 1, and all that's available to the public is the first combo round. So that's what we're going to be going over, and I'm just going to be covering the top 8 athletes that made it through into the next round. Now, this round is a combo round, meaning athletes have to perform 3 different combos, each one getting its own score and each one averaging out to give their final score. So if you mess up on one, you get docked big time because each one counts towards your final score. If you don't know what a combo is, it's basically linking 1 to 3 moves together plyometrically, trying not to take any steps in between, jumping right from one move into the next. Now, as I go over this, I'm going to try to keep my explanations relatively succinct, but also get my opinion and the way that I feel and how I think the judging and how I think the line should be going. It's going to be difficult, but wish me luck. So we're starting things off with Evan Storm, Evan Leslie. He was the first one up in the top 8. He was the second one to go in the competition. So you got to keep that in mind while we're looking at these scores because being the first/second person, the judges are usually still calibrating and you kind of get shafted more often than not. But let's see what Evan's got. I know he starts off with a really solid actual combo. He kongs up, hits the popcast, lands tiny shuffle into that crazy low popcast. Now, the only thing, and I'm not even lying about this, the only thing that you could deduct from that is that little shuffle steps. Now, if we slow this all down, you're really going to see what I'm talking about. And this is the only thing perfectly connected from the Kong to Popcast. Now, when he lands out of this Popcast, there's this little bit of a shuffle with his feet. That right there is like a godsend when you're doing a competition line or a combo. All athletes know when you have that little shuffle, it gives you that break that you need in your brain to just reset, get your body in that perfect position. You get just that moment to think before going into your next move. And even though it was there, it wasn't a big deal. In my opinion, this was a picture perfect combo with a small error on execution. Now, the judges gave Evan a 7.8, which this early into the event, it's hard to tell if that's a really good score or a really middle of the pack score, a really bad score. You don't know yet. Only 2 people have gone. Evan was the second to go. Judges are still calibrating. We don't really know if that's a great score. All right, next up we got Jake Randazzler. I'm pretty sure. Let's see. He goes gainer full pre, little hop down, takes a step into the palm flip. Now the gainer full pre, absolutely disgusting. I can't take anything away from the gainer full pre. That's such a nasty spot to put it. But, but remember, we're gonna do 0.5 here. Remember what the goal of this round is, and that is a combo, right? Linked plyometrically. And yes, the gainer full pre was beautiful. Landed a little bit to the side, and this caused him to hop down. I would guess Jake wanted to Kong down out of this, Kong off this wall, and then go into his palm flip. But since he landed a little bit to the side, very understandable, it's small ledge and it's gainer full pre, he ended up having to jump down, 1 step up, causing him to have to take this step into the palm flip. Now, in his defense, this step that he took could have easily been a step 1-2. He only took 1 step forward and then had to reach for this palm flip here. He's not in a great position to do an easy palm flip. So he did save the line a little bit in that sense. That being said, he still took a step. And in my opinion, that step should be knocked more than Evan's stutter on the last one. Jake got an 8.23 for that combo. So that was 0.43 higher than what Evan did. Evan's, in my opinion, was much more true to the combo aspect without taking any steps. Granted, the gainer full pre was significantly harder than the popcast. Probably harder than the low cast as well, although Evan's low cast was insanely difficult. Clearly, based on Jake's score, they're looking at the difficulty of the individual tricks pretty highly, considering he scored higher for this combo than Evan did. Again, combo was good. The hard part was the gainer full pre. That was it. Everything after that, pretty much anybody in that room could have done. It's just that gainer full pre is a thing. The reason I don't really agree with that high score is because there is a big trick round, which is where a gainer full pre would suit it better. The point of the combo round kind of gets nullified if taking a step isn't going to dock you heavily. All right, next athlete up, we got Jaden Harris. Dude is a freaking savage. He starts with scoot double full hyper directly to a pimp. That line is disgusting, okay? Like, I know everybody knows that that's disgusting, but I just need to explain how disgusting it is. Now, in my opinion, this should be far and away the highest score. This should be scored significantly higher than Jake's, significantly higher than Evan's. I think Evans and Jaden should be a little bit closer, but overall, Jaden's was much harder for a couple reasons. So, obviously, scoot dub, most athletes in there could do no problem. The fact that he hypers it, he gets this extra quarter twist out. Now, that right there, you can see his feet have pivoted. That's not perfect execution. Now, when we watch it one more time, boom, that little half step is the absolute only thing that you could dock this for. And you're not taking away many points for that, in my opinion. You're taking away barely anything. So one more time, again, the reason this is so difficult, he hits the scoot dub, hypers it out, then the spacing is what's important. If he lands a little bit too far back, it kind of destroys this next move, the pimp flip. If he lands a little bit too forward, again, it destroys the pimp flip. So that's the true difficulty of combos. You have to hit the tricks, you have to land them clean, and you have to space them absolutely perfectly, which Jaden did in this spot. Look at that. Boom. Stomps the landing. My opinion, that should be far and away the highest score, probably by a relatively large margin, because the mistakes were minimal and the difficulty was very high. Now, Jaden did get scored higher. He got a 8.40 for that. So that was 0.17 higher than Jake's. I think it should have been a lot higher than that. This is one of those problems with judging, though, because I don't necessarily think Jaden's score should be much higher, maybe like zero point 0.1 higher or something like that. But I think Jake's needed to be lower so that there's a bigger gap between Jake and Jaden. That way you leave room for a much higher score if somebody blows Jaden's out of the water with, 6 athletes left to go. But that's where it starts to get muddy when you score one a little bit too high, in my opinion. All right, next up we got Sean Higgins taking the course, and this was a nasty combo. He starts with the Lachey wall flare, goes into the 1-2, and then Arabian unhalf is what I'm going to call it. Really, really solid line, really solid combo. Now let's break it down. He starts things off with this, I'm going to call it a Lachey wall flare. I'm not sure if that's exactly what it's called. Then you can see out of that wall flare, he pushes off the wall into the middle of this lane. This is a pretty tall wall, so he has to do that. Absorbs well. Yes, there's a hand tap, but I think that's an absorbing hand tap more than anything, so I kind of like it. Then he pops right into the lazy. Then he takes this 1-2. Now, it could be argued these are steps, right? I wouldn't necessarily say that these steps break the combo. I would say it's an imperfect combo. Like if he had plyoed out of this instead of 1-2 stepping, it might have been a hair better, but it's nothing that's really going to deduct points. Then he goes into, it's a little bit janky, but I'm going to call it an Arabian unhalf. Very creative moves the whole time through, and we know for a fact that the judges are looking at creativity. Yes, they're giving overall impression for each one of these, but a few things that they said that they were going to be looking for is difficulty, course interaction, which Sean did amazing at. We're going to break that down in a second. Creativity, difficulty, and obviously keeping that combo alive. Now, as I said, the judges are looking at course interaction, and that's where Sean really shined through in this course interaction and creativity. He hit a bar, a wall, I'm not going to count the ground, a second wall, a ledge, and a final ledge. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different obstacles compared to the rest of the people that have gone that only hit like 2 or 3 different obstacles. Now, in comparison to somebody like Jaden, you could argue that this difficulty isn't quite as high, but the thing is, he's doing moves that people are not normally doing, and that's going to up the creativity heavily, and it's also going to up the difficulty, especially for this first move, this Lachey wall flare, not only because it's a hard move. Yes, Sean has said before that he has it on lock, but look where he's putting his hands. He has to drop about 2 or 3 feet, catch this wall, then push away, and that's something that hopefully the judges are taking into account when they're doing this. If this was just a flat wall, it'd be so much easier to plant his hands anywhere, but he has to travel past this ledge, plant his hands down low, then push away, and that really does up the difficulty. Not to mention the fact that just because somebody says that they have a move on lock, that doesn't make the move easy. It's still a difficult move, and it's still a move that is very rarely seen. Having said that, the rest of the line, not insanely difficult by comparison when you're looking at like Jaden Harris's, but executed to perfection. Now, Sean did get a really high score for that line. He got an 8.63, which was higher than Jaden Harris's. I can see a world. I can't argue against that. I can't argue against Sean going higher, and in fact I might even say he should if they're not worried about these steps in the middle, this 1-2 right there. If they're judging harshly on specific combo, then I think he should be a little bit lower than Jaden's, but higher than everyone else's so far. That being said, I also think that Jaden should have been scored significantly higher than it was scored. So I like Sean's score. I just think Jaden's maybe should have been a hair higher. That's where I'm at so far. Let's see who we got next. Next up, we got Jared Ludy. He comes in, he goes for handstand gainer to pop palm gainer. But as we're going to see here in a second, when he goes for the handstand gainer, something goes a little bit wrong. I think he travels a bit too forward, lands heavy on his hands, even gets a little bit of a knee tap in there. If we pause right about there, you can see the knee comes down, does hit the ground. Then he stands up, still hits the combo with the palm gainer, but nobody can be stoked on that one. It's not how he wanted to do it. It's not how he's doing it in practice. And if I'm being honest, this was kind of a game changer in the long run because I think if Jared had executed this well, that could have put him in first place overall for this competition. As it was, in my opinion, this was a bail, and it should be scored lower than everyone else who has gone so far that hasn't bailed. I don't think there's much wiggle room for that argument. Jared knows it's not how he wanted it. He was stomping it in practice, and we all know he has the ability to do it. That being said, he still got a super respectable score of 8.1, which is crazy high for that type of landing. The combo was broken. The obstacle interaction wasn't that high. It was just one bar for the handstand gainer and then another bar for the palm gainer. Not really sure why the judges went that high with the score. The only thing that you can really argue for it is the high difficulty of the handstand gainer. Everything else not quite there. Next up, we got Aiden Rudolph, otherwise known as the Bigger Chin Twin. He hits Kong Gainer full roll to low cast. That's an insane combo. Obviously, Kong Gainer full so far, I would say, has the highest difficulty out of anything thrown thus far. Therefore, based on what the judges have been doing so far, you would assume that this would be probably the highest scoring combo. Huge props to Aiden for throwing this, and let's break it down a little bit deeper, talk about what I loved and some things that maybe he should be docked for. All right, first up, this Kong Gainer full, absolutely beautiful. He pulls it from the jump, where when I did it here, I cheated it quite heavily. I went over with the Kong Gainer and then almost kind of pulled a full down. This is a beautiful Kong Gainer full. He lands, and look at all this stuff in the way. He sees that. Look how he's positioned. He lands, turns his upper body, rolls away from it so he doesn't slam into this. Here's where the problem comes in. This is a combo round, right? He hit the big trick, rolled out, and already if you're rolling in a combo, it's probably going to be scored a little bit lower because they really want to see those plyometric connections. But because this roll took him away from where he's going next, he now has to stand up, turn around, plants this foot, takes one step, a second step to the wall, then he hits the low cast. Now, if somehow he had managed to do this combo, stay close to the wall, stand up on both feet, and then jump to pop cast, I would have a hard time saying that's not like a 9-5 or something crazy like that. Due to these things, having to roll, having to miss the obstacles, and take that extra step, I do think it should be docked lower. That being said, this has got to be the highest score up to this point, in my opinion. And this does put Aiden in first place with an 8.87. Fantastic score. And like I said, I think if that roll took him a little bit closer and took that step away, he would easily be in the nines. One small thing that I disagree with is how close Sean's score is to Aiden's score here. I don't know whether Sean should have been a little bit lower maybe, or Aiden should have been a little bit higher, but to me it seems like that gap needs to be a bit larger than it is. I really don't think there's too much more to say about this one. It's pretty straightforward. No real mistakes to speak of, just an insanely difficult trick linked together with a low cast via a roll and a singular step. One of the better pieced together combos so far, one of the better executed combos so far, definitely deserves to be the highest score up to this point. Kalen Chan up next, and he starts on the bar, does a cast to Lachey, lands 1-2 Kong Gainer right into like a pseudo pop cast. Overall, I think this is a really solid line. He didn't take any extra steps. There were a couple things that I would say are sloppy. And when it comes to overall impression, when something looks a little bit sloppy, I think that's really what can deduct you points. So if you watch here, these arms kind of swinging right here, that arm swing makes it look a little bit sloppy. And then this Kong Gainer, actually pretty clean. It's ever so slightly off axis, but that doesn't really matter. I don't think anybody would dock too much, too much from that, unless, of course, somebody else did a very similar line and did a perfect Kong Gainer. Land split step, this landing looks just a little bit sloppy because he's leaning back. And then again, he has to muscle up through this pop cast, making it look a little bit sloppy. So we're going to watch that whole thing one more time and just look at kind of the little uncomfortable pieces of it. Just that muscle through. Now, objectively, it's really hard to say where you would deduct points. But when you think about, like, was it super clean or was it a little bit sloppy? And that's a lot of overall impression. You can kind of see where maybe the judges might be like, well, I don't know, it wasn't the best, cleanest looking line in the world. That being said, everything was done really well. He didn't take any extra steps. He used the obstacles very, very well. A lot of obstacle integration. And he did difficult tricks, difficult links. It was a difficult combo, and it was true to the combo aspect. Now, the only reason that I bring up the sloppiness is because this was scored an 8.4, which, in my opinion, for that run is too low. So I'm kind of trying to find a reason why the judges might score it that low. Like I said, I think Jaden should have been higher. I think Kalen's should have been higher. In my opinion, so far, I would say Kalen should be in second place, if not first right now. It just depends on if the judges are super heavily valuing difficulty or really looking at perfect combinations. And that's just because Kong Gainer Full is such a disgusting move, and he linked it quite well, all things considered. Say is up next, and there's not too much to say about this one other than a couple things. One, Say is an absolute monster, especially having trained with him. This dude is no joke. Two, double cork to pop full, actually really difficult. Three, it's probably not going to put you like top three, top five, or anything like that. He executed it perfectly, but I think, he was holding back, he was chilling out. I don't necessarily think it should have been scored as low as it was. It got a 7.5. Seems a little bit low because it is like a perfect combo and all that, but there's no course interaction. There's not a whole lot of hype factor, so can't really argue against it. It is what it is. I really hope to see Say more, and I want to see him like throw down because this dude is insane. Finally, we got Ed Scott. He's going to start off with a dive catch, swing turn, goes into Lachey pre, Kong Gainer, similar to Kalen, and then ends with a palm flip. Now, obviously, this line was very similar to Kalen's, but there were a few things that I think Ed did better, and there's a few things that I think he did worse. Overall, I think Ed should be scored higher as far as combo goes. The only thing that was really ugly was that Kong Gainer. You can see as we play this through slowly, one thing that I like is he landed on 2 feet here and then punched into the Kong gainer, which makes it significantly harder, in my opinion, to do that. You don't kind of get that rocking motion that you would like to have into a Kong gainer. But that being said, this one was really slanted, like he is 90 degrees here. And because of that 90 degrees, he has to land really seated back, take this long pause. I mean, it wasn't like a break of the combo. It was just similar to how I called Kalen's, really sloppy, right? The difference was he goes into this palm flip instead of having to muscle up into that pop cast. Now, had he done it perfectly, I think obviously his should be scored higher than Kalen's. That being said, he didn't do it perfectly. Now, going into this dive catch swing turn obviously adds a little bit of difficulty. The punch adds a little bit of difficulty, and the connections ideally are better. Ed got an 8.60 for that run. In my opinion, it should have been closer to Kalen's. Like, I'm not really sure why it was scored, you know, zero point 0.2 higher than Kalen's when they were basically the same thing, and it wasn't linked or done particularly better. Like the idea of the run was better, going for the palm flip instead of the pop cast, but the actual execution of it, not nearly as good in my opinion. That being said, I think this was Ed's worst round of the entire competition. From here on out, it's damn near nothing but perfection. So this should have and was his lowest scoring run out of the event. All right, that does it for round one of SPL 1. Now, the original plan was to actually do a quote unquote why Ed Scott is so good video because I think he absolutely destroyed it this event. And from what I've heard, he didn't get the recognition that he deserved from it, mainly because he kind of came in as the expected winner. And guys like Jared and Kalen did so well that people were kind of sad to see, oh, same winner again. That being said, I think Ed killed it. The videos aren't out for the general public yet, so I'm waiting on SPL to drop those videos before I can make more. That's why I just did round 1 today. If you liked it, let me know, and I will continue on with round 2 and 3 and keep doing this for the whole event. If you hated it, I won't waste my time. Just let me know in the comments below. Thanks a lot, and I'll see you in the next one.